COVID-19 has raised a large number of issues dealing with globalization, going in two different directions. One of them is it has made us realize that we live in a small planet. The nasty virus doesn't carry a passport or doesn't recognize visas. We're all in this together. It emphasizes the need for more global cooperation. And we have some multilateral institutions. They're not perfect, but they actually work reasonably well as governments do. The World Health Organization, the IMF has taken up enormous leadership in responding to the economic aftermath in developing countries and emerging markets. So the first thing is it reminds us of the importance of global cooperation. But on the other hand, it has also exposed a weakness. We saw that our economies were not very resilient. Here in the United States, we saw that we couldn't make simple products like masks, protective gear. We become dependent on a very, on a global supply chain that was not resilient. We couldn't make complicated products like tests or ventilators. So we realized that by getting so dependent, we had undermined the resilience of our economy. In two dimensions, and I always emphasize there's a link between health and the health of the economy. The disease is going across borders, as I said in the beginning, and if we don't control the disease everywhere, it will be a threat everywhere. So it is in the interest of everybody in the world that this pandemic be brought under control. And that's why we had campaigns about the eradication of smallpox, the eradication of measles, and all, polio. We recognize that we have to get rid of the disease everywhere. So that's in everybody's self-interest. The same thing is true in the area of the health of our economy. We won't have a strong global economic recovery until we have it everywhere. In 2008, China played a critical role in the global recovery. They grew at 8, 9, 10, 11, up to 13%. And that was a real boom for the whole world. That's not going to be happening now. Forecast of China are that it's maybe grow 1, 2, 3, 4% maybe, but it's already curtailing some of its imports. It's trying to go back to having more surpluses. So it won't be the engine of global economic growth. So we need a broad-based economic recovery. And so it's in the interest of every country to make sure that every country recovers strongly. I think it's going to lead to a different globalization, and to some extent, it will be a deglobalization. I think there still will be global supply chains, but they'll be more diversified. There'll be some onshoring, but not necessarily a lot. The evidence is that there's not a lot of that. But when that onshoring occurs, it'll be disproportionately robots. It's not going to solve the problem that we messed up on 30 years ago. We have to go on to the next stage of our growth, our development, and make sure that we have inclusive growth that brings in everybody. But we can't go back. Trump in the United States, Trump wants to bring back coal, wants to bring back industries that are clearly not going to be brought back. That won't happen. What we have to do is say, okay, we make some mistakes. What do we do now to rebuild? And that's where rebuild back better is really an important part of the agenda at this point. Two basic principles. First is we have to make sure that globalization benefits everybody. And it won't happen automatically. You know, back when some of the trade agreements were signed in the 90s, many of us in the Democratic Party said we were worried about the effects of displaced workers. And we said we have to have assistance to what Europe you call active labor market policies to move people from the jobs they're losing to new jobs, and the active industrial policies to create new sectors as old sectors get phased out. We fought, but we lost. The Republicans like the idea that there is more hardship among workers. You might say, why? Because that weakened the bargaining positions of workers in America. And for them, this was a double. They get cheap labor abroad and they get cheap labor at home. So they like this globalization that worked for corporate interest and against workers in both developed and developing countries. We can't have that. The new globalization has to make sure from the start that everybody is better off, and it can't be based on trickle-down economics. That's the first. The second thing is, in the aftermath of the end of the Cold War, there was a kind of euphoria that we would be all moving to market-based economies based on rule of law and democracies, liberal democracies. Francis Fukuyama put it so strongly, he said the end of history, because we were all converging to the same model. It looks like a Pollyannish fantasy today. We're not converging. But it is still the case that we have to cooperate with countries with different political and economic systems. So we need to cooperate with China to solve the problem of pandemics, global health, global knowledge, and climate change. So we have to cooperate. Reinvigorating the Enlightenment Agenda. 200 years later, Enlightenment Agenda was about the importance of science and progress, going away from authoritarianism of one form or another, whether authority came from on high, from religion or from a king. It was about creating new forms of social institutions that were more democratic. So that's a battle that I believe we will win in the advanced countries. We have to learn how to do many things at one time, and that's what the lesson. We have to recover, and we have to recover better, greener, more knowledge-based, more equal. If we don't solve the climate change issue, we won't be able to do anything else. If we don't solve the problem of the great divide in our society, we will be riven apart. So to me, these are two things that we have no choice. We have to solve them. And if in 2030 we're discussing what did we do right, it'll be that we went after both of these simultaneously as we recovered from COVID-19.